producer, Logan Landers. And joining me to talk about this NCAA Week 2 game preview between the Colorado Buffaloes and the Nebraska Cornhuskers is my man, Mr. Football, Vincent Turner. How you doing today, sir?
Hey, I'm doing that fantastic, Mr. Logan Landers.
I'm glad to hear, sir. Glad to hear. Before we get into our keys to the game, who we think's going to win, and who the key players and whatnot are going to be, if you like the show today, please like, comment, share, and of course subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. Tons of game previews, team previews, legends interviews, player profiles, coach profiles, you name it, you can find it on our channel at 100 Yards of Football Sports Talk Radio under YouTube and of course on Facebook as well. All right, let's get into it. What a wild week one it was for both these schools who are going to be facing off here later on this weekend. Colorado took the world by storm before the season even kicked off. And my goodness, what a dogfight they had against the TCU Horned Frogs, who were ranked number 17 in the country at the time. Went in there, just back and forth, battled it out. And ultimately, Colorado, of course, led by Deion Sanders, his son Shedeur Sanders, they pulled it out, a massive upset, 45-42, the final score in that ball game. I was able to watch a good majority of it, and my goodness, this Colorado Buffaloes team impressed me early on. Now, I'm not going to say it. I'm going to say it. Look, going into that game, I didn't know if they'd all be ready yet just because that was pretty much a brand new ball club on both sides. I didn't know how they were going to gel in week one, brand new stadium, brand new team, all this stuff, but they were locked and loaded. Obviously, big 45-42 win. Shedeur Sanders was the MVP of that ball game. You got to think, set a school record, 510 passing yards in his first game, 4 touchdowns, kept it clean as well, no interceptions, and threw the ball nearly 50 times. He was tremendous. Dylan Edwards was a very nice surprise. He's a freshman, Vincent. You got 5 catches, 135 yards, 3 touchdowns. Impressive on the day for him. Travis Hunter, what more needs to be said? That man was he played over 100 snaps. We all know he played on both sides of the field. He led the way with 11 catches, 119 yards. And it was just an offensive explosion for this Colorado Buffalo team. So if they want to win this ball game, I think you got to have that same amount of offense. But what worries me about this Colorado team, though, Vincent, they did not record a single sack last week against TCU. They did not get any pressure really on the quarterback. Like I said, they were not able to take down Chandler Morris at all. Now, we all know the secondary is playing well, and also I need the offensive line for the Buffaloes to play a little bit better this week. Sanders was rushed a few times, and he was sacked a handful of times as well. Make that 4 on the day for him. So really it's just the offensive line, which I'm kind of surprised, though, Vincent, because the offensive line is bringing back, I believe, 2 players, if not 3 from last season. So that was the only really spot that had some experience from the previous regime at Colorado. So my keys for Colorado, if you want to win the ball game, keep the offense flowing like you did last week. That was an absolute show to watch. I can't wait to see how it progresses through the rest of the season. But you got to tighten up your offensive line. You can't have Sanders getting sacked multiple times, and you got to get pressure on the quarterback. No sacks last weekend. Not the best look, but we'll see if they can get it going against Nebraska. Mr. Turner, what are your thoughts on Colorado and what they can do to win this ball game coming up this Saturday?
Well, I'm going to say this. I'm assuming everybody knows that the college football world was shocked last weekend. I didn't see it coming, more or less. People got to realize that Colorado came in this game as a 20-point underdog. The team they beat on last Saturday in their home place in Fort Worth, Texas, just recently played in the last college football national championship game. Think about that for 1 minute. You bring in a coach on in Deion Sanders that brought in I believe 33 new transfers, new roster of people. But what happened last weekend, the whole world, the country, the football landscape in college football was not expecting it to happen. I could tell you this, Colorado was one of the fastest teams I saw of any college team from last weekend. And what really impressed me was the athletes they had on the outside. Shedeur Sanders, the quarterback, a guy that does a lot of voiceover work for us. Mark Denham had told me 2 years ago at Jackson State that this young man can make every throw. Then he told me the young man Tulich under Tom Brady when he was in high school. And when you looked at that game, one thing about Shedeur Sanders, he took what the defense gave him. And it was just like watching a young man coming on the national scene like a Tony Dorsett when he was a true freshman at Pitt, or watching a Herschel Walker here locally in Georgia running over Bill Bates. I was watching the game, and you know the establishment at Buffalo Wild Wings in Douglasville, Georgia. You've been there.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody in the place was just shocked. So the keys for Colorado on Saturday against Nebraska is very simple. Get the athletes in space, because Nebraska is not going to match up with you athlete and athlete. And if Nebraska doesn't put pressure on Shedeur Sanders, you're going to see what happened last week. And one other thing, have you ever seen a college football player better than Travis Hunter as a two-way player? Now, a lot of people talk about Charles Woodson. I understand that. A lot of people talk about Tommy Casanova at LSU back in the 70s. A lot of people talk about Billy Cannon in the late 50s. A lot of people talk about Tim Brown. A lot of people talk about Anthony Carter from an offensive standpoint. But I'm telling you, in my opinion, Travis Hunter might be the best college football player I've seen pound for pound. The young man played 129 snaps. And like the great Skip Bayless said, and I was watching Skip Bayless on Undisputed. I don't want to give him credit, but I got to. He said this right here that sticks in my mind, and I'm going to take this with me. He said he never betted against Tom Brady. He said Deion Sanders, he's never going to bet against Deion Sanders. Florida State, the Falcons, the Cowboys, baseball with the Atlanta Braves, not prime time in the college football landscape. Hey, man, he's changing the face of college football. And I could say this, I expect Colorado to win the game real big on Saturday. And then after that, Colorado State comes up, then they got Oregon and USC. The hype machine, you might get used to it. Everybody, including myself right now, if I had to go anywhere in the world, Logan, it wouldn't be over in Rome, Italy. It wouldn't be on no beach in Pensacola, Florida. It wouldn't be in the Caribbeans. I like to get a ticket to Boulder, Colorado, and go see what's happening up there with the University of Colorado with prime time and Deion Sanders.
I was about to say, I don't know how many tickets are going to be left, Vince. It might be some raffle tickets we can get, but man, yeah, they have taken this team just by storm, man. It's been fun to watch just through 1 week. I mean, they've already matched their win total from last year at 1. So, I mean, regardless of how many more wins they get this year, they're already improving on last year. But let's talk about Nebraska, man. Let's talk about what they can do to play spoiler. Last week, they should have won this game against Minnesota. Let's be real here. Gave up 10 points in the fourth quarter, game-winning field goal to seal it for the Golden Gophers. Just turnovers, I think, really killed this Nebraska team. Jeff Sims, not a great game played at all. Former Georgia Tech quarterback, only threw the ball 19 times. 11 to 19, if you look at that, you might think he done well. But 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions, and a 34.9 QBR. Not the best on the day, but the bright spot for this Nebraska team was their rushing game. They were able to run the ball for 181 yards, so we'll see how Colorado can deal with that. Like I said, Sims was the leading rusher because, I mean, hey, either he was going to get sacked, intercepted, or he's just going to run the ball. But Gabe Ervin Jr. had a solid day as well, 7 carries, 55 yards. Alex Bullock led the way for the receiving corps, 3 catches for 56. But, yeah, just for me, I think turnovers was the big factor to spoil Matt Rule's debut for Nebraska. Like I said, the 3 interceptions, that's not going to get it done. They also had a fumble late in the game as well that cost them. Like I said, 4 turnovers in your opening week. It's expected for some schools, but Nebraska, as you know, Vincent, this is a storied program. This team's been tremendous at times. Here lately, they're trying to get back to their heights and just get better and better. But honestly, I feel like they should have won this game. Penalties as well. They had 7 as a team. You got to clean that up. So for me, if I'm Nebraska trying to, derail this hype train known as Colorado, just got to play cleaner. Can't have all that going on. Can't have all those interceptions. Got to keep the ball clean and just got to play a little bit tougher defense, man. Because like I said, only gave up 13 points, which is not bad. But when push came to shove Vincent, man, they got shoved down. Because Minnesota, in those last 2 minutes, really, they just took it to them, gave up 10 points at the end, ended up losing their ball game first on the year. So Nebraska is going to be a tough task this week. You got to stop a high-powered offense. Can they do it? Mr. Turner, your thoughts?
Well, when you looked at the game last week, you kind of felt like Jeff Sims, who's the new starting quarterback under Matt Rule in Nebraska. You thought about him having the same kind of game that Shedeur Sanders had against TCU. He was on the national stage, transferred over from Georgia Tech. But let's be honest, he played a horrible game and really probably cost Nebraska the football game. So that's telling me you're going into Colorado. I'm looking at the Nebraska team, and you got to go back to the old days, Matt Rule. Don't let Jeff Sims, at no point of the game, him throwing the football around. Even though he threw it 19 times last week against Minnesota, Nebraska, your only way to win this football game is pound the rock. It's just like Mr. Logan Landers just said. You had 181 yards on 37 attempts. That's almost 4.9 yards average. You had Gabe Ewan that had almost 7.9 yards rushing the football last week. Bottom line, Jeff Sims, he's what he is. Nebraska, let's go back to the old days. Tommy Frazier, Lawrence Phillips, Armand Green. When the Cornhuskers was rolling, you better bring that game plan in to slow the pace of the game down and control the football game on the ground. Now, one thing that Nebraska can take what happened last week against TCU in the Colorado game, Colorado had problems at times stopping TCU from running the football last Saturday. To me, that's the only way the Nebraska is going to stay in the football game. And remember these names right here, Mr. Logan Landers, and to our audience out there, 100 Yards Football. Asset Cook Gifford, Quentin Newsom, Omar Brown, Deshaun Singleton. You know who all those players are? That's the secondary of Nebraska. You better be ready. It's Wednesday. You better be watching game film. Jimmy Horn, he's ready to eat. Xavier Weaver, he's ready to eat. Dylan Edwards, he ready to eat. Travis Hunter, he ready to eat. And Shedeur Sanders is licking his chops. That's the Nebraska secondary. Case closed. Back to you, Mr. Landers.
All right. Well, my final thoughts on this ball game, my final score, my prediction. I'm going to go with the Colorado Buffaloes winning big in this one. Give me Colorado 38 and give me the Cornhuskers of Nebraska 17 in this ball game. I'm curious to see this game. My key factors I'm watching out for, like I mentioned earlier, my thoughts. I'm going to see how the offensive line of Colorado is going to do against Nebraska. They did manage to get 3 sacks last week, so we'll see how they can do. But I think overall, Colorado is going to get the big win in this one. Once again, 38-7. Mr. Turner, your final score predictions.
I'm looking at Colorado on national television game. It's going to be played at 10 o'clock Mountain Time in Boulder, Colorado. The whole world is looking right now at Deion Sanders. If you go to social media, you go to the TV, you go to ESPN, you go to what's my man, Pat McAfee, Stephen A., Shannon Sharp. Everybody is talking about Deion Sanders and the Colorado Buffaloes, and I don't think they're going to disappoint on Saturday morning. When it's all said and done, Colorado, I'm going to be very light here. Colorado 38, Nebraska 17.
Okay. We'll see how it goes, but we want to hear from you, the fans. Who's going to win this ball game? Is Colorado going to have another high-powered game, or is Nebraska going to upset the Buffaloes this upcoming Saturday? We want to hear from you. Of course, Mr. Football, Vincent Turner, appreciate you as always coming on the show, talking some college football previews with me. It's an absolute pleasure. I've been your host and producer, Logan Landers. Once again, if you liked the video today, like, comment, share, and subscribe. We'll talk to you again on another live episode of 100 Yards.